So I'm going to introduce today 3 chord shapes that you might be familiar with. The reason that I'm covering these specific shapes on strings 2, 3, and 4 is because it is one of the most comfortable chording sets of strings on the guitar for me, and I think that I see a lot of people using these, and it seems like these are really tried and true go-to chord voicings that you can use to play over all sorts of different kinds of music and chord changes. So these 3 chords are, I'm going to do them in the C major. And so the first one is taken right out of like a C major open chord. E, G, C. E is the lowest note, so that makes this a first inversion triad. And so I'm going to move up from here on the same string set. And one thing I want to show you, or I want to mention as I'm going through this, is that these are close triads, meaning that each note is as close as it can be to the next note in the chord. So there's no skipped notes. So I'm going 3 up to the 5, the closest 5, and then the closest one above that. So what I'm going to do to invert this up is just move each chord tone up to its next note. So 3 goes to 5, 5 goes to 1, 1 goes to 3. And now I can just bar this with one finger, and it's pretty comfortable. You can play it different ways, but I almost never do anything but this. So I've got this one, first inversion, second inversion, and then from there I have root position, C, E, G, 1, 3, 5. And if I go up again, I'm back at the shape I started with, just an octave up. And so then my shapes would repeat. I could go to the second inversion. Oh, it's kind of hard to reach. So those are nice sounding chords, and you can use them for a lot of things. I'm going to go into some of those things now after I kind of show some ideas of how to practice them. So first way to practice them is as chord blocks, so playing them all at the same time, whether that's hybrid picking like I tend to do, or if that's just strumming all 3 with a pick, doesn't matter. You can just practice them by playing for 2 beats, let's say, moving to the inversion, going all the way up. I'm going to put on got this metronome here. I'm going to put that on. Two, 3, 4. So that's way number 1 to practice it. Second way would be to do it as broken chords, like this. Again, you can do with just your pick. I'm doing hybrid picking, so I'm just doing pick, middle, ring. So I'll put the metronome on. Okay. Another cool thing you can do with these is that if you combine them all together into one position, meaning you're changing chords rather than just inverting the same chord, you can make 1, 4, 5 patterns around each of these chords. And those 1, 4, 5 patterns are really useful when you're trying to find something to play over a song. A lot of songs use 1, 4, 5s. Obviously, there's other chords in the diatonic scale that get used a lot, and also non-diatonic chords, but these are the most common. So if I take my first inversion shape here, this is C, and I want to go to an F chord, I can play my root position that I formerly did up here for C. I'm going to play that here because this is the root note and this is F, so that's an F chord. So I got C to the 4, F, And then the other shape I had was this one. And that's a second inversion. So from C, my 5 chord is G. So if I just go here, instead of barring, obviously I'm just playing the open strings. Then I've got a second inversion G chord, and now I can go back to C. So if I want to do 1, 4, 5, 1, I could go C, F, G, C. That's a pretty easy way to play a 1, 4, 5, 1. That works in each of these 3 positions. So if I just move it up to here, now my C is the second inversion. So then I'm going to go to F, which will be this one, which is first inversion. And then my G is in root position, and then I'm back to C. So I've got a 1, 4, 5, 1 in that position as well. Now I've got one more position that I can do this in. Root position C, and then if I go to barring with my third finger here on F, and then I go to my first inversion G here, this G is on top, D, and then B, that's first inversion G major chord, and back to C. And I could do it again up here, same as I did the first time. So if I practice that, I'll do 2 beats on each chord. And there we have it, the 1, 4, and 5. So you can see that playing over a song, you can have a lot of options. And of course, you can move these chords to the different string sets, which is part of what I'm going to cover in the next lesson that goes deeper into this idea. But for now, we've got our 1, 4, 5s. So you may be, let's say you have a 1, 4, 1, 5 in C. I could play it many different ways, but here's one example by moving through some of these shapes. So I could do 1, 4 here, and then 1, and then I could jump up to 5 here. I could do a different thing on the way back down. 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. So you can cycle through these in different ways to get different sounds, and that's really helpful when you're coming up with parts for songs, or if you're just trying to play something musical. Let's say there's another guitar player in your performance setting, maybe someone strumming a guitar, strumming some opening chords. You could strum the same chords as them, but that might be a little redundant and not sound the greatest because it might be a little too muddy. So you could come up here into a range that they're not even going to touch and play some kind of part that complements what they're playing in a different range. Okay, so one of the other handy things about these voicings is that any major triad can be turned into a minor triad just by changing one note. So I can take this C chord, and if I just move this G on the 3rd string up to A, I've got a minor triad. If I go up to the next position, if I move the G up to A, I've got an A minor triad. C, if I move the G on top up to A, there's my other A minor triad. So it's easy to change between these, and that helps because other than the 1, 4, and 5 of any key, the next most common chords are the 2, the 3, and the 6, which are going to be minor chords. So if you got to play all the chords in the key, you've got 1, 4, 5, then 2, D minor, 3, 6. So I've got all 6 of those chords right here. So it makes it really easy to play a progression of most songs that use diatonic chords, diatonic being in one key. So if I go up to the next one, do 1, 4, 5, and then 2, 3, 6. 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. And see how I'm just using the same 3 chord shapes that I played here, here, here. I'm just putting them in different positions to make the different chords. If I go up here, 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. So that is, I find that to be really useful and really helpful when I'm playing over any song that uses diatonic chords. One thing to remember is that every triad is also a 7th chord. Basically, a triad, like a C major triad, also is the upper part of an A minor 7 chord. So if you play a C major triad and put it over an A, it's an A minor 7. So if you're playing with a bass player in a band situation, you don't have to always play the root note. So these triad voicings come in really handy if you know which ones to use to create the different chords. The final thing I want to close with in this video is using these chords as guideposts for improvisation. Each of these shapes exists in a scale. So there's notes around each of the notes of the chord that I can play to embellish the chord, to create a melodic movement while I'm playing the chord. So if I'm playing this C chord, I've got all these notes I could play. So instead of just playing this for a part, I could do something like that. Sounds a lot more musical. Might be a little too busy for some scenarios, but it's a little more musical way to add some melody into your playing, and also to know, just to get familiar with the notes that surround these chord shapes. So if I move up here, whoops, I guess I meant to play that note B natural. And I use these a lot when I'm playing solos and I want to add like a chord to add some, a bigger sound, something that is contrasting to what I'm doing. I'll kind of hit a chord and then start improvising in the area around that chord. And a lot of my playing is using chord voicings as guideposts to the chord changes of the song. But so you can use these shapes, like I said, because practicing scales doesn't always have to be, going from the bottom all the way to the top and back down. You would probably get more use out of putting them into context with chords and learning how to improvise around a specific chord area than just running your scales up and down all day, which is good. You got to learn those at some point, but having them connected to chords is better. So I'm just gonna finish with this. Just kind of showing how I use these shapes in order to just improvise a little bit. So I'll do it with the different chords of the key in this position here. The 4 chord, the 5, the 2, 6, 5, and you saw at the end I was kind of extending into some of the other strings around the area, and that is going to be what I go into next time. I'm going to go into the full vertical shapes that you can expand out of these 3 triads I showed you today to create a full guidepost system for the whole neck. So I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this, And stay tuned for that video coming soon.